We are extremely excited to tell you about our first couples retreat that we are offering October 5th through 10th at the Nature Place in Colorado. It's coming up. What do you think about it, Tara?
I'm excited. It's going to be very connecting. We're going to have some outdoor ropes courses, some orienteering activities, a lot of workshops in between all of that, just to help build skills to have relationship that you want, that you deserve.
It's going to be an amazing experience. I mean, we're going to be there the entire time. We're going to do workshops. Like Tara said, there's going to be like outdoor activities. It's all inclusive at this incredibly beautiful environment. And there's only 15 spots. We're limiting it to 15 couples. So if you are interested, please check out globallj.org. You can go there and sign up, or you can always just reach out to us at info@relationshiprenovation.com for the I've Got You couples retreat in October.
Come join us in the beautiful Rockies in the fall. It's going to be awesome. Hello, all, and welcome to the Relationship Renovation Podcast. I'm Tarah Kerwin.
And my name is EJ Kerwin. And I'm excited about this episode because it is a topic that we deal with couples, but also we hear a lot through our social media and through the podcast about. And that is, what happens when two individuals are not exactly in the same place in the therapeutic process, or even in the process of getting into the process, and what happens when there's that sort of disturbance in personal growth in a relationship, and how do you cope if you're the person who really wants to get the process going, and how do you cope maybe if you're the one that's a little more cautious about it?
Yeah, when one partner's ready and one partner's not.
Absolutely.
It can be very destabilizing for the coupleship itself.
And our impulse to do this show, and I'm going to play this right now, is one of our listeners who left a voicemail through our show notes. There's a link in every single episode where you can type in questions or comments. We reply to all of those. But you can also leave a voice message that we will play on the show and respond to. So this comes from one of our listeners, and they gave us permission to play it on the show and sort of launch this episode.
Hey guys, great podcast. I just heard the comment on the newest episode about you're doing good, and then just that moment happens, and then it's all hope is lost. And that was kind of my marriage for a while, but it was in my head. My wife was looking at going to therapy, and I wasn't ready yet. So I just started writing, and then I actually ended up just publishing a book. But those moments to where momentum goes definitely will absolutely destroy everything. But great podcast, and I wish you guys all the best of luck.
Thank you, listener, for that very vulnerable and honest voicemail, and for giving us the idea for this topic today.
Yeah. I mean, and it kind of combined two things. Is we had a podcast a little bit ago talking about, how things can just come and you think things are going really well, and then you just get hit with a side wind, and it just kind of blows all of your confidence out in your partner or in your relationship. And then, he talked about, which is really an important thing, is, here he was in a place where he was kind of stuck in his own head, kind of not ready to take it out of there. And yet his partner was like, hey, I'm doing the work. Will you join in with me? And he just wasn't there yet. Right. And that's tough, right, Tara? I assume you've seen this quite a bit as well.
Well, I when I do see it, it feels a little disheartening, because obviously we always want both parties involved to be like both ready and motivated. But when you start to really unpeel it and see, why maybe they're at different places in their process, that curiosity and the answers you find to that, like, that's kind of what will at least connect those two individuals together, if you can get to that place.
Well, I think it's hard in those moments. We talk a lot about empathy. We talk a lot about keeping an open heart to your partner. But I think it's really difficult in those moments where where you just want them to engage and you want them to jump into couples counseling, or you want them to read some book that you feel like is going to have a positive effect on your relationship, and they just don't want to do it.
I have to share something funny because it brought up a couple like 2 years ago, and she was way more motivated. He not so much. And so at night, she would put on earphones and put our podcast in his ear while he was sleeping. And I said, I don't think that is the way to shift his level of motivation.
Yeah.
But she was so desperate for him because she wanted to just connect with him. And so let's kind of structure this, because where do we want to start? Because I could see myself going in so many different areas of this.
Well, I think on the practical side is one of the most frequent comments we get is, I want to go to couples counseling. Yeah. And my partner does not.
Yes.
How do you respond to that? As when maybe somebody comes into you for individual therapy, Tarah, and they're like, I want my partner to come in, and they just won't do it.
I mean, my way of kind of helping them through that process is that we don't have control of the other person's process. What we do have control of is ourselves and how we react to and or try to process this uncomfortable situation or experience that the client is having. And so really, I try to help that individual feel in control for themselves and not have that external, like, well, if he or she isn't going to do it, then I'm just going to give up, because that's just a place of, you're not in control. You feel disempowered. Yeah. And so I always say, listen, even if your partner is resistant to therapy and not willing, like, we can make changes internally to help you feel like you have choices.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that is so important, because what you're talking about is you're helping that person move from disempowerment to empowerment. Yes. That their partner's unwillingness to jump in the process makes them feel powerless, that they're stuck, and that they just have to accept what's going on in their relationship. And what you're saying is that's not necessarily true. That, systems theory tells us couples, families, it's a system, just like the solar system, and they have orbits, right? But if one component of that system starts to make changes, the entire system is affected.
Absolutely. And there's also, I always ask the question like, well, how are you talking to your partner about it around coming into couples counseling? And usually the way they're going about it, I don't mean to laugh at it but it's out of fear. And it's like, if we don't go to couples counseling, I'm going to separate from you, or I'm going to divorce from you, or bad things are happening. And then like just that message for the other person can be very overwhelming and scary. And so, again, in this process where I'm helping them have an internal locus of control, feel in control, well, then how do I state this need? Because I want to feel more connected to my partner. That's the whole reason people want to come into couples counseling. How do I state it in a way that's going to be more hearable to my partner, instead of like, if we don't go to couples counseling, we're going to end up divorcing or separating, and it's really bad, and you need to look at this stuff that you're doing, or I refuse. It's like, hey, I notice that we're really struggling with feeling connected at times, and it would mean a lot for me if, just to even go to one session together to hear what a professional might say. I mean, just softening it up a little can be so powerful. And so you just want to, practice. How do I be more gentle in my approach instead of fear-based? Because if you're coming at me, EJ, like in this fear-based way, I am going to resist and withdraw and say no 1,000 trillion times.
Well, and it's going to reinforce the fact that this is going to be a negative experience.
Absolutely.
And what's so interesting is that there's a complete paradox here is because many people think going to couples counseling means that their relationship is nearly over. That the highest likelihood is if we go in there and we really talk about these things that we've been avoiding, or every time we talk about it, it leads to conflict, that it will force us up against this wall that we're just going to have to separate. But the statistics are completely contrary to that. Like, it still blows me away when I read this. It's like higher than a 90% success rate when couples go to couples counseling. Like, and that's consistent data over many years. Yeah. But that is not what a lot of people think of.
No. And again, the message is it's not that there's something wrong with you. It's not that there's something wrong with me. It's not that there's something wrong with us. We just don't have the skills or understanding to know how to manage or navigate whatever the situation is. And another big thing too is I would love it if couples came in and they were like, oh, our relationship is good. We just want to be better. That does not happen. For whatever reasons, humans change in times of crisis, right? I'm thinking of a consult that came in the other day, and he came in by himself. And he's like, I got home and my wife said she wanted a divorce. And I had no idea things were bad. And so really, like, my passion is to get out into the community, the world, really, to be like, do not wait for things to get that bad. And you might not even know it, to just talk about your relationship, to be preventative, to learn skills when things are okay, or even when they're really good. Because if you don't, and you're not talking about things in your relationship and just asking the question, hey, are we okay? How are you feeling about us? You know, that curiosity, again, you could go years, months, whatever, building up these feelings of disconnection and loneliness, but you're not talking about it. And then bam, out of nowhere, you get sideswept.
So if you're a listener and you really want to get your partner into couples counseling, and they've already told you they're not interested, or you just have a sense, right? Let's talk about ways in which you might frame it that are more positive, right? Because if you come in with the whole, if you don't go, we're over, that reinforces their pre-existing fears, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
What are you smiling at?
I was just thinking about, like, to get partners in more, like, it's not true, but like, hey, like, I really just want to be able to have more sex with you. For like a partner, the other partner is like really struggling because their intimacy is struggling, but no, don't do that.
No, that's funny. You could use it for that. But I mean, I think what you're saying there, Tarah, is that there has to be some reward that comes out of it, right? Like, if it's framed almost exclusively from a fear-based point,
right? That
like we're at a crossroads.
Yeah,
that's not very tempting, you know? Because I think you always say this, that like we want to stay in our own patterns, even if they're slightly dysfunctional.
Right. It's comfortable. We're just used to it. It feels like familiar, even if it's dysfunctional.
Yeah.
One of the first ways we can approach it is just like, you know, you're going to go in and you're going to be a little softer and, hey, honey bunny, or just, hey, it would mean a lot for me if you'd be willing to attend a couples counseling session with me. You can kind of make it more about you. I've just been really struggling with some stuff, and it would mean a lot if you could support me in that. Right? That way it doesn't feel like you need to go into couples counseling with me or we are done, right?
Yeah, and there's something really important there, is it's not framed in a way that it feels like you're bringing them in because they are the problem.
Yes, so thank you for clarifying that.
Yes.
So one of the first ways is you make it about you, not your partner.
And you make it about a we thing from a positive side. Like, I think we could really learn a lot, and I think we can become a lot closer, and we can grow together into like this wonderful partnership. And there's definitely strengths we have, but right now it seems like we're struggling, and I want to reconnect with you.
So let me go, because another approach is, I want to feel more connected to you. I love you so much. I know we've had so much going on in our lives and we have not prioritized our relationship. And I would really love to seek out recommendations and skills on how I can be more connected to you, how we can feel more connected. I mean, who can't hear that, right? Yeah. That's like beautiful. Like, if you were saying, I want to feel more connected to you, I would feel so happy. Like, really? Yeah. You know, but just, again, life gets in the way, because there's no judgment here on couples that don't do this, because 90% of them do. Just life gets in the way. We get really busy. We start to prioritize other things other than our person. And we don't talk about that and how that other person or how we're feeling in our relationship. And then it comes to the point where, like, this doesn't feel good. We need to go to couples counseling. So that's all okay. But really, having a soft, gentle approach into making the request so it can feel that both of you are agreeing to this and one's not being pulled in or forced.
Yeah.
That's what you don't want.
And I think another sort of subcategory of that is going to your partner before there's a crisis. Because most of the time we have a sense of the things that we're struggling with in our relationship. But if they're not at a place where it's really like become completely unmanageable, we sort of keep our fingers crossed, hoping like, oh, maybe it'll just change. But if you can talk to your partner earlier on in a pattern of like, look, things are still like okay, like we actually are like getting along pretty well, but I think there are just a few things that it would be really nice for us to get some support around. Then you're not pulling them in because you're at your wit's end. But if you're not careful, you'll get to your wit's end.
Yeah, right. And, there's couples all over the place. They're either like listening to this like, oh, I guess I could talk with my partner right now and kind of check in and be curious about this. Or we're at our wit's end. There's so much anger there. Oh, I just feel completely hopeless. So again, all of that is okay. And side note, I was thinking, that song, I think this is how love goes. Check yes or no. You could do a little note, say, will you go to couples counseling with me? Check yes or no. You can cutify it, right?
Cutify it. All right. So here's an effective way, I think, in eventually getting into couples counseling. And it's what we talked about at the very beginning, which is beginning the process on your own, but doing it in a really intentional way. I have met with many individuals over the years who have come into individual counseling knowing that they really wanted to do couples counseling. But we worked for 6-8 weeks together. And we help them frame their process in individual counseling to their partner in a very positive way of, hey, I'm learning things about myself. Hey, I'm trying to be more intentional in our relationship. Hey, this has actually been a really positive experience. And sometimes then it sort of bridges the gap for the partner. They see that like, oh, this actually isn't like having a negative effect on them. It's not really having a negative effect on us. In fact, wow, I've noticed like some positive things. And then maybe it just becomes a little more palpable to the partner. And so not being afraid to begin the journey before your partner's ready to begin the journey.
Absolutely. And what about if we are that partner that is a little more resistant or avoidant or absolutely steadfast and absolutely not? I will not go to couples counseling. I will not go to individual counseling. Like, what do we want to say to people that are experiencing that kind of resistance?
I mean, this is sort of a reverse a take on something, but one thing we spoke about in a podcast a couple of weeks ago was the importance of when you're going through difficult times, being aware of what you're really grateful for, right? Is being aware of the things in your life that 95% of the population of Earth would be grateful to have in their lives. And the flip for me on that is if I'm that resistance person, looking at what I have to lose, you know, which goes through for me a sense of gratuity. And like, I know that like, it's something I've been really using in the last like few weeks is like, if I'm in a difficult emotional state, whether it's about us or about work or about whatever, I'm really focusing on like, man, what are all the things about my life that I'm just so thankful that I have? And it makes whatever difficulty you're going through a little bit easier because you're like, oh my God, I actually have like all these things on the other side. But it also then for me is really motivating to like, you know what, I can deal with this, or I can talk to Tarah about this, or I can weather this like difficult emotional state because gosh, it's worth it because there's so much in my life that is amazing. You know, there's so much that I'm grateful for. So in this case, why wouldn't I want to take that risk to go into couples counseling? Because it's worth it to keep everything else in my life that I like.
So what I'm hearing is instead of taking that, immediate, no, I'm not doing that, or that reactivity, or that avoidance, and you're starting to get curious about it, and maybe you're trying to prioritize and what feels good in your life and almost make a list, you're softening it for yourself then. Instead of the automatic no, it's like, well, what if? And then there could be possibility. And really what I've noticed for individuals who, because we've seen a lot of them who have been resistant, it's just they're scared. Like, what happens if, like, at least right now we're together, even though it's like whatever, like, what happens if we go in and it just all blows up? Like, there's just this fear that happens, and a misunderstanding of what therapy is and wellness and feeling connected is. But once you get to the root of why you're refusing to go, it gives you the ability to then have a conversation with your partner around why, instead of it looking like I absolutely will not, and in protest, you're like, I've got to let you know, like, I was thinking about this and why I'm really, resistant to this, or absolutely don't want to do it. It's like, I'm really scared. Maybe I've had a bad therapeutic experience before, or maybe like I feel like if I have to go to therapy, something's wrong with me. And maybe shame happens when I start to think about that. I mean, the conversation could go 1,000 ways.
Or maybe there's things from my past that I just don't want to look at.
Yeah.
There's
a lot of
I
that.
don't want to go back. But what we're saying is like, look, if you are resistant, that is saying that you have a big area of growth. Not that you have a lot of pain you got to deal with, but you have an area of yourself that you might just be able to break through, you might just be able to expand into, and that maybe your partner would be an amazing ally in that journey. And maybe having it in a facilitated environment, having it with a thoughtful therapist might make it a heck of a lot easier than it is to do at 9:30 between, putting the kids to bed and watching Netflix.
Well, and there's also that person like, oh, I don't need directions. I know how to get there. I don't need help, right? Like, what's a therapist really going to do? Like, we don't need that. Well, then you're just doing it because your partner wants you to do it, and you're just going to sign up because they want you to.
Because they're worth it. Because they
right? Are worth it. Because you might be that person that's like, I don't need help. And that's okay. But you're in a relationship, right? And there's got to be compromise on some level. And so you do it because your partner feels like there could be some positive benefits to your relationship if you go.
I'll kind of wrap it up here. And this is like the last piece of advice for the person who wants to go to therapy, but their partner doesn't, is being empathetic to their resistance. Is instead of, I can't believe you don't want to go. It's like, I've asked you 100 times, or just like not saying anything, just addressing an empathetic way of like, I can tell that the idea of going to therapy is really hard for you. And I would love it to happen because I think we could grow a lot, but I understand you're not ready right now.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It's beautiful, but hard.
Yeah.
Right.
But it works sometimes.
I think it does. Because what it does is it leaves a door open. You're not shoving them through the door, but you're saying like, hey, I love you. The door's open. I'm walking through it.
Yeah.
We're still in the same house.
Yeah.
But I want you to join me in this other room.
Yeah. Well, and the cool thing too, because trust me, we have seen consultations where one is definitely being pulled in by the arms, by the legs, like you will come in through this door and sit down. And once you get there, because I think that one person might think like, oh, this is going to be all about me and what I do wrong in the relationship, and it's going to be a total bitch session about me. And really, right, when you're with a skilled couples counselor, it is about the system. It is about both of you. It is about past. It is about present. It is about future, that you are not a singled out person. That does not happen when you are with a skilled couples counselor. Yeah. And that automatically, so when we have the people that come in that are really being forced to, like, I don't really want to be here. I'm just here in country. Like, okay, 30 minutes leaving after the consult, it's like, oh, actually, okay. Like, this is going to be okay. This is not all on me. This is not all on them, the other partner.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And, there are other options out there. And we do offer another option for people who want to try something at home as well. It's our Relationship Renovation at-home program, and it's self-guided, and there's videos in it. We actually, I don't know if you know this, Tara, we had a couple from the UK just complete it yesterday who went through the entire program.
We should have them on our podcast.
That would be amazing.
Oh my gosh, we have to reach out.
So, it is definitely a way to do it at home. It's structured. It has lessons that you go through and questions you ask one another. And it moves you through a process of just really getting to know each other in a deeper, more intimate, compassionate way. So check it out. There's a link in our show notes. You can also go to our website, relationshiprenovation.com, and check out under our online programs. And I have a little surprise for you.
What?
Today is our 4-year anniversary of putting out this podcast.
Oh my God. Happy 4 years.
We've been doing this for 4 years.
Oh my
and thank you all. We've had
oh my gosh,
a lot of growth, especially recently, but we've had people that have been listening to us for years now.
I'll never forget. I would be so nervous and I'd have this complete outline, like, we have to say this and this. And oh, EJ is like deflecting from that outline and he's not doing it in order. And now I'm just like waking up, like, wonder what we're going to talk about today. Like just the process of like how scared I was and how anxious I was to now how free I feel. And hello, that is the process of couples counseling right there.
Yeah.
It feels really in the beginning like overwhelming and maybe hopeless and anxiety producing, but then you go through it. And, 4 years later for me, I was getting more comfortable after like a year. It feels like, oh, we've got this. I've got this. Yeah. And so all hope is not lost if your partner is a little resistant or just not ready. It's not lost. There are ways to talk about it, to process it, to move through it, where it feels connecting, where it feels compassionate, where you guys can be on the same page, even if you're not quite both ready to be in couples counseling.
Yeah. So thank you once again to our listener who provided us that voice memo and launched us off onto this idea. And we'd love to hear more of your voices and put more of you on the podcast, because it's just kind of fun. It just kind of adds a little cool element to the show.
It really does. And thank you again for listening. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Me and you just singing on the train. Me and you listening to the rain. Me and you, we are the same. Me and you have all the fame we need. Indeed, you and me are we.
We are extremely excited to tell you about our first couples retreat that we are offering October 5th through 10th at the Nature Place in Colorado. It's coming up. What do you think about it, Tara?
I'm excited. It's going to be very connecting. We're going to have some outdoor ropes courses, some orienteering activities, a lot of workshops in between all of that, just to help build skills to have relationship that you want, that you deserve.
It's going to be an amazing experience. I mean, we're going to be there the entire time. We're going to do workshops. Like Tara said, there's going to be like outdoor activities. It's all inclusive at this incredibly beautiful environment. And there's only 15 spots. We're limiting it to 15 couples. So if you are interested, please check out globallj.org. You can go there and sign up, or you can always just reach out to us at info@relationshiprenovation.com for the I've Got You couples retreat in October.
Come join us in the beautiful Rockies in the fall. It's going to be awesome.